Today we're diving into a topic everyone tacitly acknowledges yet rarely unpacks. One steeped in untold suffering, political intrigue, even the smoke of war. The full history of women's undergarments. More precisely, we'll explore what women endured with their bodies over thousands of years, long before the modern bra was invented. You might think underwear is nothing more than scraps of cloth, trimmed with lace and fitted with underwire. But listen closely, undergarment history has never been a chronicle of textiles. It is a sweeping saga of power, agony, social revolution, and a perpetual battle over what society demands women's bodies look like. This video is packed with exhaustive research. We'll trace the timeline all the way from Crete 3,500 years ago to Golden Age Hollywood. By the end, you'll see the bra you wear every day in an entirely new light. Our story begins in 1903. A British archaeologist named Arthur Evans excavated the Palace of Knossos, the heart of Minoan Civilization on the Mediterranean island of Crete. One day, he brushed dirt off a 30-centimeter colored faience figurine and froze on the spot. This artifact would later stun the world, the Snake Goddess. Her design is wildly distinctive. She clutches a snake in each hand, a small cat perches atop her head, and her outfit is nothing short of revolutionary. She wears an ornate tiered skirt cinched at a tiny waist, paired with a fitted bodice split wide open at the front, literally fully open, laying her breasts bare. Yet the bodice's rigid edges lift and support them prominently. Victorian British scholars were collectively baffled by this find. Could humans really have embraced such unapologetic openness 3,500 years prior? This is the first great enigma of undergarment history. In Minoan culture, breasts were not something to be hidden out of shame. They stood as emblems of fertility, divine authority, and elite social standing. The logic of their garments was not concealment, it was elevation and display. This stands in total opposition to the modern bra's design ethos. Cover first, then lift and gather. It brings us to the core question of our discussion. After this era of unreserved bodily display, how did humanity spiral into centuries of harsh restraint before finally landing on today's science-backed support systems? What seismic cultural shifts unfolded in between? After the collapse of Minoan civilization, humanity's aesthetic values underwent a radical upheaval. By ancient Greek and Roman times, undergarments shifted from showcasing the body to containing it. The Greeks prized balanced, restrained beauty. They no longer viewed bare breasts as sacred. Instead, they saw breast movement as uncouth and uncivilized. Thus emerged the first true prototype of breast undergarments, the strophion in Greek, known as the mamillae to Romans, essentially a long band of wool or linen. Women wrapped this strip tightly around their chests beneath their chiton robes. Two fascinating details stand out here. First, its purpose was flattening, not accentuating. The Greeks deemed the smooth, compact bust of unmarried maidens the height of elegance. Second, it featured functional versatility, worn over clothing for aesthetics, or underneath for physical support during labor or athletics. We must mention Rome's famous Bikini Girls mosaic. Discovered on the floor of a Sicilian villa, it depicts female athletes discuss throwing and weightlifting in garments nearly identical to modern bikinis. A closer look at the mosaic's fine lines reveals these were no simple scraps of fabric. They featured tailored seams and reinforced side panels. This proves that 2,000 years ago, women already recognized that running and jumping required physical structural support for the torso. This instinct to regulate the body was not exclusive to Europe. Contemporary Ming Dynasty China saw women wearing the dudu, or belly cover. Though its name sounds gentle, its aesthetic priority in many eras was also flattening the bust. Soft, curvy silhouettes were deemed frivolous and improper by mainstream Eastern beauty standards of the time. 4th century Indian Sanskrit plays reference the stanapata, a breastband worn by leading ladies. This garment served as vital stage storytelling tool. Characters signaled their emotions by tying or untying its straps. East and West alike reached a universal consensus thousands of years ago. The bust needed containment. The debate raging for millennia was simple. Would it be lifted and displayed, as the Minoans preferred, or bound and flattened, as the Greeks favored. Textbooks widely claim the modern bra was invented in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, until a groundbreaking archaeological discovery upended this narrative in 2008. During renovations at Austria's Lengberg Castle, workers uncovered tattered linen scraps buried in floor crevices, a refuse pile dating back 500 years. Archaeologist Beatrice Nutt's Carbon dated the fabric and was utterly astounded. The textiles dated to the 15th century, equivalent to China's early Ming dynasty. Most startling of all was their shape, not simple bands, but structured pieces with distinct cups and shoulder straps, even adorned with delicate lace. It was as if a modern bra had traveled back through time. This discovery proved that women in the so-called Dark Ages had already invented support garments nearly identical to today's bras. So why did this functional design vanish for the next 400 years, replaced by the agonizing corset? This gap in historical record tells a tragic story. Patriarchal beauty standards and class arrogance together erased this early form of liberated breast support. The 16th century brought a game-changing figure, Catherine de' Medici. This Italian, born Queen of France, brought ice cream and perfume to the French court, along with a torturous garment called the body. The earliest ancestor of the corset, Catherine deemed boxy, shapeless figures an insult to aristocratic status. She mandated that noble women adopt rigid cylindrical torsos and impossibly narrow waists. This aesthetic spiraled into pathological extremes during the Victorian era. Picture the standard fashionable waist measurement of the day, 13 inches. For reference, that's roughly the circumference of a large cantaloupe. What did women endure to achieve this melon waists? Corsets were stiffened with whalebone, steel strips, even wooden slats. Two burly servants would brace their feet against the woman's back and haul the laces tight. The physical toll was catastrophic. Fractured ribs, constant crushing pressure, snapped the floating lower ribs inward. Displaced organs, stomachs, intestines and livers were forced downward into the pelvis or upward into the chest cavity. Corset liver. Autopsies of Victorian women revealed permanent indentations on livers from corset rib stays. Chronic breathlessness. Lungs could never fully expand. This explains why noblewomen in period dramas swoon mid-conversation and carry smelling salts to rouse themselves. They were suffocating from oxygen deprivation. Worse still, this suffering was framed as moral virtue. Refusing a corset labeled you loose and ill. Bred. The rigidity of your undergarment stood for the rigidity of your morality. This oppressive fashion regime endured for over 350 years, until a cohort of fierce women rose up to say, enough. The first wave of feminism erupted in the late 1800s. Physicians and dress reformers publicly rallied around a single slogan: burn the corsets, restore rational dress. Two pivotal trailblazers deserve recognition. First, Hermione Cadolle of France. In 1889, the same year the Eiffel Tower opened, Cadolle unveiled a revolutionary design at the Paris World's Fair. She split the traditional corset clean in two. The upper half supported the bust, the lower half cinched the waist. She named the bust support piece soutien, gorge literally, throat fee-chest support. Cadolle was a radical in every sense, a seamstress and anarchist who fought on the barricades during the Paris Commune. Only a woman set on dismantling the old order could dream up a garment that cut the corset in half to free the body. Second, Mary Phelps Jacob, an American socialite. If Cadolle refined undergarment design professionally, Jacob stumbled onto the modern bra by happy accident. In 1910 year, old Jacob prepared for a debutante ball, wearing a sheer silk evening gown. The heavy whalebone corset beneath poked harshly through the delicate fabric, ruining the dress's silhouette. Desperate, she called her maid. Fetch 2 silk handkerchiefs and a pink ribbon. She stitched the handkerchiefs together to form cups, fastening them at the back with ribbon. Dancing in her makeshift creation, she experienced a revelation. No steel ribs digging into her torso, unobstructed breathing, effortless movement. Her fellow debutantes begged to know her secret. A stranger even mailed her $1 to commission a copy. In 1914, Jacob secured a US patent for her backless brassiere, marking the official birth of the modern bra as a standalone consumer product. Yet it was war, not shifting aesthetics, that banished corsets for good. In 1917, the United States entered World War I, and steel became a vital wartime resource. The U.S. War Industries Board issued a stark national edict to all American women: stop purchasing corsets. We need their steel to build battleships. Statistics tell the staggering scale. The steel saved by women abandoning corsets totaled 28,000 tons, enough to construct 2 full-sized warships. Modern undergarments rose to mainstream prevalence because women sacrificed their own bodily comfort to supply the nation's military machinery. Compounding this shift, men departed for battle, leaving women to staff factories and ammunition plants. Imagine operating industrial machinery hunched over lathes, gasping for air, trapped inside a whalebone corset rigid enough to restrict every movement. It was a recipe for self-harm. Lightweight, functional, athletic undergarments became an absolute necessity. By the 1920s, fashion embraced the flapper movement. The era's defining aesthetic: jazz music, bobbed hair, and boyish, flattened silhouettes. The undergarment logic flipped once more, from lifting and accentuating to minimizing curves entirely. Advertising slogans of the era proclaimed, "Erase your curves, embrace neutral elegance." The history of undergarments is a pendulum, swinging endlessly between accentuation and flattening, each swing mirroring a complete upheaval of women's social roles. The 1930s brought a game-changing, engineering-driven breakthrough. Prior bras only came in generic small, medium, and large sizes. As anyone familiar with bodies knows, bust size cannot be measured by frame alone. Breast volume and shape vary wildly between women of identical torso measurements. Ida Rosenthal, a Russian immigrant and founder of Maidenform, identified this critical flaw. To scale her business, she needed standardized sizing that accounted for both underbust circumference and breast depth. Thus, the ABCD cup sizing system was born. This marked more than a fashion evolution. It was a triumph of mass industrial production. Women no longer required custom, tailored undergarments. They could walk into any department store, state their size, and find a reasonably well-fitted bra. The 1950s reversed course once again. In the Cold War era, Hollywood celebrities dictated global beauty standards, and the bullet bra exploded in popularity. Its sharp, exaggerated conical shape, popularized by icons like Marilyn Monroe, became ubiquitous worldwide. Special spiral stitching was required to maintain the rigid, pointed silhouette. Cultural analysts argue this aggressive, angular design reflected post-war global tension and a cultural obsession with displays of strength. The 1960s thrust undergarments back into the political spotlight. Nearly everyone has heard the phrase, "bra burning." Legend claims feminists set their bras aloft during the 1968 Miss America pageant protest. But this is a widely circulated myth. Protesters did bring a giant freedom trash can and tossed bras, girdles, high heels, and false eyelashes inside to demonstrate resistance against society's oppressive beauty standards. They planned to light the bin on fire. Yet Atlantic City's wooden boardwalk posed a severe fire hazard, and police barred them from igniting the pile. The next day, newspapers sensationalized the event with fabricated headlines of bra burning to grab readership. Though no flames touched a single bra that day, the metaphor endured. The bra was no longer merely clothing. It became a universal symbol of patriarchal constraint. Now circle back to the snake goddess figurine we opened with. We see humanity traveled a vast circular journey, from unapologetic bodily display, Minoan Crete, to gentle physical restraint. Ancient Greece and Rome, to pathological, crippling compression. The Victorian corset era finally arriving at science, backed support and bodily autonomy. The modern ages. The snake goddess still stands behind museum glass, serpents coiled in her hands, her gaze calm and unyielding. She almost seems to laugh at all the centuries of human turmoil, broken ribs, warship steel, standardized cup sizes, all this fuss when the human body was always perfect as it is. The true complexity lies in society's ever-shifting, judgmental gaze. The history of undergarments is ultimately a battle for women's ownership of their own bodies. once a society dictated exactly what women must wear. Today, women choose their undergarments, or choose to wear none at all. That is the profound, revolutionary progress hidden within these simple scraps of linen. That wraps up this deep dive, over 5,000 words long, into the full history of women's undergarments. Drop your thoughts in the comments and stay tuned for our next wild historical deep dive. See you next time.